Okay guys, here's the last of the three videos. This uses some masking and blending and mostly just masking to tell a story, only we're using some type to literally spell out the story. Do you really need this much vehicle? And it's got the Hummer driving down friendly Alamo Street right in front of the Art and Design Center. If you own a Hummer, sorry, don't mean to pick on you too much. I'm actually just jealous. If I go on that big off-road fishing trip someday, who knows, I may very well rent one because they're cool vehicles. But saw this one driving down the street and it looked pretty darn serious for just driving through town. So I thought I'd pop this headline on top of it. So I apologize if this is offensive to any Hummer owners because they're really cool. But anyhow. What did I do here? I did a color range selection because I did this weird purple color on the sky just to attract some attention. And let's see what things were like without all this stuff on here. Let's take a look. Without all the adjustments. There was my basic photo. Now I did tilt it a little bit just for a little bit of drama or something. But that's the basic photo unadjusted. And you can see, let's see, we've got, yeah, there we go. It's normal opacity, normal fill, normal blending. That's just the straight photo. You can see we've got kind of a blue sky with some very, very white clouds in there. And the glass on the vehicles, particularly these vehicles are around the Hummer and the highlight shiny parts of the vehicle in question, do reflect a lot of this blue sky. Some of them reflect it pretty heavily. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to change the color of the sky just for, you know, kind of a crazy attention-getting device. Change the color of the sky like so. And to do that, I did a color range selection, and that was demonstrated in the first video in this series. I did a color range selection. I clicked with that little eyedropper in the color range selector, clicked around here on the sky, and I got pretty much the whole sky. And I did get a lot of the highlight areas on the vehicles, which is great. So there's, yeah, that was my my hue and saturation adjustment. And oh, now here it is. Rather than the master, what I did, I adjusted the cyans. See, that went kind of way over to purple there, pretty crazy. And I adjusted the blues. There we go, adjusted the blues. That went way over to red. So that gave me these kind of weird pinks in the under part of these clouds in the background, and gave me kind of these weird purples up in the sky. Hopefully that's not too, you know, Tales from the Dark Side. Just a little something to get some attention. Now what did happen on these highlights on the glass here, I got a little too much. So let's take a look at that mask. What can I do? I could come in here with a gray brush, perhaps, and set that brush to darken so that it wouldn't lighten these black areas of the mask. You know, I can set that brush to darken, so it's only going to darken those lighter areas. And I can kind of soften that up a little bit. I can set the brush with a lower opacity. Let's see what that does for us. So let's get a brush, and we're going to set that to gray. Set that to kind of a nice mid-gray there. Yeah, maybe a little bit lighter than mid. Okay. And we're even going to pull back on opacity a little bit still. Actually, I'm going to pull back on flow. That'll give me a chance to go back over it a time or two and maintain greater opacity if I want to. And let's see what size of brush. Now, that's probably pretty good brush size, and it's got a soft edge to it. Yep, hardness is set way back. So now I've got my mask selected, and I'll just go in here. Ooh, that's nice. Yeah, that's pretty nice. And so we'll just go, and I can brush fairly liberally. I'm even going to hit the top of the Hummer there a little bit, not quite so purpley. I can brush fairly liberally because the other areas are masked out. Well, no, there's the exception. Because it's set to normal. Great. Just great. Let's see. I'm going to revert to saved. Pardon me. Forgot to set that brush to lighten, just as I had talked about. So there's my mask. Got my brush set on gray still, and instead of normal, I'm going to set it to, excuse me, not lighten, to darken. I'm going to darken those white areas of the mask. It's not going to lighten the black areas, which are masked out. I've got my flow at 44%. Here we go. Oh, that's nice. That's what I wanted. And let's mask out that Hummer, highlights, and the car in front of it. There we go. So here's what I painted on my mask. Here we go. Let's see. Painted a little gray in there. We can paint a little bit more even on that. Got a nice big swatch of gray right there. And even on these highlights. Cool. Now I had a hue and saturation adjustment pretty much on the clouds and sky and on the highlights, and we've let that hue and saturation adjustment stay at about half strength by painting it with gray. I also had a curves adjustment going on. Where is my curves? Oh yeah, and that was on the sky as well. Now that curves adjustment won't apply quite so much to these. Oh yes, it will, because I've got, that's a separate mask there, isn't it? And once upon a time, I did that option click drag, between the two, which I won't repeat because I've got my nice gray mask there. Here's the difference between the two. There we go. See those white areas still there on this curves mask, because I wanted that curve adjustment to apply, and I did kind of an S curve. Darkened the darks in the sky, lightened the lights, sharpened up the midtones, because I didn't have a whole lot going on in midtones in the clouds. So let's see, with and without. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and it kind of grayed out those very dark highlights. I wanted a little bit of tone in there. Now, for my nasty little headline here, I just put that in as a type layer. Just got my type tool, like so. Let's see, and I can, with the type, oops, I want to be sure you get the regular old horizontal type tool. With my type tool, I can type in, I was only kidding. Or not, I don't know. That's my type. And that looks a little different than the type that I finally ended up with. I've got a texture on there. And I had this whole other image. Let's see what that was with the texture. Oh, because I've got a clipping mask on there. Well, let's see what it was here. I'll open it up. This was, you know what this is? Those of you that have been around the Art and Design Center might recognize this. It's a sideways view right now, but it's just the texture on those concrete pillars that are out there under that glass canopy. But I thought it had kind of a nice light and dark going on, nice rough texture to it here, nice marbleized texture to it there. Real interesting piece of concrete. So I put that in here behind the type. There's what it looks like with. There's without, just plain old gray type, pretty much. So there's with, and I pasted that texture in on a layer above the type, and well, here's what I did. I can release the clipping mask. Oh, there it is. That's the layer that I put in. I pulled back on fill a little bit. It was a little strong at first. There it is. So that's my layer. And when we highlight that layer and go up to the panel button, it's the 4 little lines with the triangle. Every panel has one. Gives us a lot of contextual menu choices. I can say create clipping mask. Boom. And the type becomes a clipping mask for this texture. Nice. And I put some effects on it too. I put just a little drop shadow. There I go with the drop shadow again, after admonishing you to not go in there alone. Let's double click on that and see. Now there's a drop shadow with and without. Yeah, arguably without. I also tried an inner shadow, which was a little bit more successful. Kind of like that a little bit better, actually. Let's go with that. And here are the adjustments you can make on the inner shadow. I did black. Let's pull back on opacity a little bit, and you can adjust size and distance just as you can with drop shadow. You know what this does, or what this doesn't do that the drop shadow can sometimes do? This doesn't muck around with the stroke weight of the type. And for those of you showing a portfolio to people out there, there's a lot of us type geeks out there that are real picky about our type, and we like it to be nice and clean, and we like the integrity of it to be honored. So this is a less onerous change that way. There it is, mixed in with the rest of the image. So it gives it a little pop, a little dimensional pop there, without messing around with the stroke weights of the type. So this is a nice solution that uses a lot of different effects, starts to tell a story. Now, what's my beef with this? Because this is just a snapshot. I did this real quick. If I were turning this in for a project and I were another me were grading it, I would take umbrage with this a little bit. I mean, we've got these light poles. It's kind of just a snapshot. I've got these light poles here that are really kind of interfering with the type. You might consider doing something with those. Maybe going into the photo and just taking that clone stamp tool perhaps and just getting rid of that. Here's the clone stamp, and we'll click somewhere. I'll turn off these extra layers actually. We'll click somewhere to define a source. Option click rather to define that source, and we'll click to, there we go. An option click to define a source, and click on that destination. Oops. You may have to do this multiple times. And I've probably got some blending modes that are affecting this a little bit. But I would consider, I'll just get rid of one of these right now. I would consider getting rid of something like that if you had a chance to. Because it's kind of detracting from our storytelling a little bit. Now you can place, to get your source, you can place this circle tangent to an edge like that. Option click for your source and go over here to the destination, put it tangent to what's going to be the edge. And oh, I option clicked, hello. Okay, put it tangent to the edge, option click, put it tangent to the edge, and click and drag to paint. There you go. Boom. Pretty close. You'd want to zoom in actually to get that even better. And option click again to renew a new source, and be careful. You definitely want to zoom in, getting close to the lights and features of the vehicle. But just with that quick pass through there, much improved. Here you'd have to, oh hello, zoom back in just a bit. Here we go. And I'd want to go in and touch that up somehow. But this is a quick shot, and you can see the big improvement in legibility here. Now the other thing is, you'd probably want to go in and make a selection. There's this goofy blue fence over by the post office there. Make a selection and do something with that. Pull back on the darkness of that. Make that a little bit lighter somehow with a curves adjustment, with some nice mask selection there, so that this vehicle would stand out. Boom! We want it to pop off of there and really be visible. My other beef with this, and I tried fixing this, didn't quite do it. We'd almost want to go reshoot this photo because, oh no, I don't have my fix for that on here. Let's see. Under here, this just goes to straight solid black ink, you know. So we might want to try fixing that. Let's do actually a color range selection here. Let's do a color range. Oh, nice. And we'll just click on there and get some of these dark areas underneath. And I've got marching ants, and now I'll do an adjustment layer for curves. Boom, check it out. Now, based on my mask, look at this histogram. It's got this massive spike here in the darkest darks, nothing else, so I can feel free to adjust away on there. And boom, if I take it up clear there, it gets like unnaturally light gray. That's a little much, but you can see what I'm getting at. We need a little bit of contrast in there, so I've steepened the curve a little bit, and I'll pull back here, and that's about as far as I can push it and still even look remotely natural. But that's worth a shot. You know, it's a curves adjustment layer. If I decide it's not quite right, I can come back again and pick up where I left off. But here's after, there's before. It helps a little bit. You know, I'd almost want to go out and reshoot. You know, if you're dead set on this, you could go to the, you know, a place like a car dealer and kind of sneak a shot in there or something. You know, tell them it's for a school project, get permission. And then come in and take a street shot. Be sure it's at the same angle, you know, if you're dead set on doing something like this. But, you know, I would have a beef with legibility up here. I would have a beef with some of the contrast issues around the big star vehicle of the photo. But once you got those things fixed, I would, you know, the storytelling's real big on that. You know, whether you agree with the headline or not doesn't really matter for the sake of the class. But yeah, that's that one. I'd say that one's, you know, it's coming along. So that's our video demonstrating the clipping mask up here with the type. That's a pretty cool feature. Some of these things that you can do with a color range selection, and some of the other adjustments that we're gaining a lot of familiarity with right now. So with, you know, you can see with a few quick masks and adjustments, you can have a pretty interesting piece starting to go on there. So good luck with this project, and that wraps up our 3 videos for this week.